Throughout both the pre-war and post-war periods, karate spread across Japan and eventually laid the foundation for its worldwide development through the extraordinary efforts of Okinawan masters such as Gichin Funakoshi, Choki Motobu, Kenwa Mabuni, Chojun Miyagi, and Kanken Toyama. Their achievements were further supported by the cooperation and encouragement of leading martial artists from mainland Japan, including Jigoro Kano, often regarded as the father of modern Japanese martial arts, as well as Hakudo Nakayama, Hironori Otsuka, and Yasuhiro Konishi. This remarkable journey, which established karate as one of Japan's recognized martial arts, is now widely known. Before that, it is important to note that Okinawa had already laid the foundations of modern karate through the efforts of masters such as Anko Itosu, Kanryo Higaonna, Kosaku Matsumura, and Sokon Matsumura, who trained many of the karateka that would later establish the major styles of karate. However, while this is widely recognized, far less is known about the path karate took in Okinawa, the birthplace of karate after the Second World War. How it survived, recovered, and eventually flourished. Compared with the history of karate on mainland Japan, this chapter of Okinawan karate remains relatively unfamiliar. Even among Japanese karate practitioners today, there are probably not many who are well acquainted with the history of Okinawan karate during this period. In this video, we will explore how karate evolved in post-war Okinawa and how it has been passed down to the present day despite overcoming numerous hardships. Some of the topics covered in this video are subject to differing historical interpretations. Accordingly, the information presented here reflects one of several existing viewpoints. We hope you will keep this in mind as you watch. To understand post-war Okinawan karate, we must first understand what kind of nation Okinawa once was. Let's begin with a brief overview. Present-day Okinawa Prefecture was once the heart of the Ryukyu Kingdom, an independent kingdom that existed for approximately 450 years. The Ryukyu Kingdom was established in 1429 during the first half of the 15th century through the unification of the three kingdoms, Sanzan. It flourished as a maritime nation through active trade with China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia. While cultivating its own unique language, culture, performing arts, and religious traditions, the kingdom also served as an important bridge connecting the nations of East Asia. Even before the establishment of the Ryukyu Kingdom, in 1372, King Sato of Chuzan began sending tribute missions to the Ming dynasty. By receiving formal investiture from the Chinese emperor, Ryukyu established official diplomatic relations with China. Thereafter, the kingdom gained considerable wealth through the tributary trade system with China. In 1609, the Satsuma domain invaded the Ryukyu Kingdom, placing it under Satsuma's control. However, in order to preserve the profitable tributary trade with China, Satsuma allowed Ryukyu to maintain the appearance of an independent kingdom. As a result, Ryukyu occupied a unique diplomatic position. It continued paying tribute to China while simultaneously paying tribute and acknowledging subordination to the Satsuma domain of Japan. This unusual political arrangement lasted for approximately 270 years. During this period, Ryukyu further developed its distinctive culture through continuous interaction with both China and Japan. Because the possession and carrying of weapons were restricted to some extent in the Ryukyu Kingdom, it is believed by some historians that indigenous methods of self-defense and martial arts evolved independently, including a martial art known as Tei, hand. Influenced by Chinese martial arts, this tradition later developed into what came to be known as Tode, Chinese hand. At the time, Tode was reportedly a highly secretive martial art transmitted only among a limited number of people, including members of the royal family and the warrior class. In 1879, the Meiji government formally abolished the Ryukyu Kingdom and established Okinawa Prefecture. Its objective was to firmly incorporate Ryukyu into Japanese territory while eliminating the influence of Qing China. During what became known as the Ryukyu Disposition, military forces and police were deployed, officials of the Ryukyu government were arrested and detained, and some accounts state that certain individuals were even subjected to torture. The last king, Shotai, was relocated to Tokyo and incorporated into Japan's newly established peerage, Kazoku. Meanwhile, some members of the former warrior class appealed to the Qing dynasty for assistance or refused to cooperate with the new government, although these actions never escalated into large-scale armed resistance. Granting Shotai peerage status was intended to reduce opposition to the abolition of the Ryukyu kingdom. The Meiji government recognized that punishing him or stripping him of his status could provoke stronger resistance from the former royal family and warrior class. Therefore, while abolishing his position as king, the government preserved his personal status and honor in an effort to facilitate a relatively peaceful transition. At the same time, the Meiji government was incorporating former feudal lords and court nobles throughout Japan into the newly created Kazoku peerage system. Including Shotai within this framework also served to demonstrate, both domestically and internationally, that Ryukyu had become an integral part of Japan. Furthermore, many people in Ryukyu still valued their relationship with Qing China, and the Qing government itself continued to regard the status of Ryukyu as an important diplomatic issue. By relocating Shotai to Tokyo and treating him as a member of the peerage, the Japanese government sought to demonstrate that the Ryukyu royal family was under Japan's protection, thereby weakening Qing China's political influence over the islands. In addition, Shotai was provided with a residence in Tokyo and granted a government pension. These measures not only ensured the livelihood of the former royal family, but also facilitated its integration into the new Japanese state. In 1897, Kanbun Uechi, the founder of Uechi-Ryu karate, traveled to Fuzhou in China's Fujian province. According to one theory, one of his reasons for leaving Okinawa was to avoid Japan's conscription system, which would take effect the following year. It is also said that other Okinawans who had traveled for similar reasons were studying at Kojo Dojo, the school where Kanbun initially trained. For reasons that remain unclear, Kanbun later left Kojo Dojo and became a disciple of Shu Shiwa Jozie, a master of Pangai Nun, a branch of Southern Shaolin boxing. Several years later, he is said to have become qualified to teach and instruct Pangai Nun in China. Afterward, from the 1880s through the 1890s, Okinawa's integration into Japan accelerated in earnest. The Ryukyuan language, customs, religion, and culture were increasingly regarded as backward, and under the government's assimilation policies, they were gradually altered or suppressed through the education system and public administration. Japanese language education, the family registration system, military conscription, the land tax reform, the modern police system, and a new school system were introduced one after another, incorporating Okinawa into the same administrative and social framework as the rest of Japan. During this early period, the prefectural government was largely directed by officials dispatched from the central government. 19 years after the Ryukyu Disposition, in 1898, Okinawa participated in its first election for the House of Representatives, granting Okinawan residents the right to vote and stand as candidates in national parliamentary elections. However, this was not universal suffrage as understood today. Voting rights were limited to men aged 25 or older who paid a specified amount of direct national taxes. In 1925, universal male suffrage was introduced, abolishing the tax qualification. Although modern institutions were steadily established, Okinawa continued to struggle with chronic poverty. Sugarcane cultivation, which had been encouraged during the Ryukyu kingdom to support the finances of the Satsuma domain, expanded even further under the Meiji government's industrial policies, leading to a period of economic prosperity known as the sugar boom. However, distribution networks and financial institutions were largely controlled by outside capital and merchants from mainland Japan, and much of the resulting profit failed to reach local farmers. Around 1920, sugar prices collapsed, leaving many farmers burdened with debt. The situation worsened with the onset of the Great Depression in 1929, followed by Japan's Showa financial crisis in 1930, dealing a devastating blow to Okinawa's rural economy. From the 1910s through the 1930s, repeated typhoons and droughts caused frequent crop failures. In years when rice and sweet potatoes could not be harvested in sufficient quantities, many people survived by repeatedly soaking the toxic seeds of the cycad, sotetsu, palm, to remove their poison before eating them. If the detoxification process was incomplete, it could prove fatal. This period of severe famine became known as Sotetsu Jigoku, Cycad Hell. Against this backdrop of economic hardship, overseas emigration increased rapidly around the turn of the 20th century. Major destinations included Hawaii, the continental United States, and Peru, with later migration extending to Brazil and other countries. Driven by shortages of farmland, heavy tax burdens, and limited employment opportunities, many Okinawans left their homeland in search of better lives abroad. As a result, Okinawa became one of Japan's leading emigrant prefectures, and Okinawan diaspora communities were established throughout the world. The founder of Goju-Ryu karate, Chojun Miyagi, originally hoped to emigrate to Hawaii. However, his teacher, Kanryo Higaonna, encouraged him instead to travel to Fuzhou, China. 8 years after Kanbun Uechi had made the same journey, Miyagi departed for Fuzhou in 1904. Although he remained there for only about 2 years, considerably shorter than Higaonna's approximately 15-year stay, discussed later, or Uechi's 14 years, Miyagi came from a wealthy family. Unlike Higaonna and Uechi, who trained under severe financial hardship, Miyagi is generally believed to have been able to devote himself to more intensive and focused training during his time in China. From the 1900s through the 1930s, many Okinawans left their homeland to seek work on mainland Japan. During this period, reports described job advertisements and boarding houses displaying notices such as "No Okinawans" or "Ryukyuans not hired." Many Okinawans experienced prejudice and discrimination based on their dialect, poverty, and cultural customs. Marriage discrimination has also been documented. Large Okinawan communities formed in areas such as Osaka, Tokyo, and Kanagawa, where migrants supported one another while building new lives. Today, many of their descendants continue to live in these regions. The first generation of Okinawan migrants was often employed in physically demanding occupations such as construction and mining. From the late 1930s onward, increasing numbers also found work in military-related factories. They established close-knit communities throughout Japan while enduring difficult living conditions. Against this backdrop, in 1924, Uechi Kanbun, the founder of Uechi-Ryu, moved to Wakayama Prefecture and began working as a security guard at a textile mill. A few years later, he opened the first Pangai Noon Kenpo dojo outside China in the company's residential complex, where he began teaching a small group of students. By the late 1930s, as Japan moved from the Second Sino-Japanese War toward the Pacific War, the Japanese government intensified its assimilation policies in Okinawa. Schools strictly enforced the use of standard Japanese, and children who spoke the Okinawan language were sometimes required to wear dialect tags around their necks as punishment. Students also participated in recitations of the imperial rescript on education, Shinto shrine visits, military drills, and instruction emphasizing loyalty to the emperor, while many young Okinawans were conscripted into military service. The imperial rescript on education promoted virtues such as filial piety, harmony among family members, diligence in study and work, and dedication to the public good. It concluded by calling upon citizens to courageously devote themselves to the nation in times of national crisis. Schools and government offices increasingly encourage people to use standard Japanese pronunciations of their names rather than traditional Okinawan readings. Because Okinawans often face discrimination in employment and everyday life on the mainland, many voluntarily adopted Japanese-style pronunciations of their surnames and given names. In some cases, even the written characters were changed, while in many others only the pronunciation was altered. Some scholars describe this process as a form of de facto assimilation driven by social pressure. Yet despite being expected to assimilate as Japanese, Okinawans were not always accepted as equals. Social prejudice and discrimination persisted. One of the individuals who contributed most significantly to the spread of karate, Gichin Funakoshi, was originally surnamed Funakoshi, but adopted the written form Funakoshi while active on the mainland. Likewise, the renowned karate master Chomo Hanashiro came to use the standard Japanese pronunciation Hanashiro rather than the original Okinawan reading Hanagusuku. Around 1930, the exact year remains debated, Chojun Miyagi adopted the name Goju-Ryu, making it, according to one interpretation, the first Okinawan karate style to use a modern formal school name. Today, the four major styles of karate are generally recognized as Shotokan, Goju-Ryu, Shito-Ryu, and Wado-Ryu. Of these, only Goju-Ryu was established and developed primarily in Okinawa. The other three were founded and expanded on mainland Japan. In 1932, the Pangai-Noon Karate Research Institute relocated to the Okinawan residential district of Tabira, Wakayama City. By 1940, the school had adopted the name Uechi-Ryu Karate Jutsu. In 1942, Kanbun Uechi's son, Kane Uechi, returned from mainland Japan to Okinawa and established a dojo in Miyazato, Nago, introducing Uechi-Ryu to Okinawa itself. Uechi-Ryu later became recognized as one of Okinawa's three major karate styles, alongside Shorin-Ryu and Goju-Ryu. Among Okinawa's three major styles, Uechi-Ryu, Shorin-Ryu, and Goju-Ryu, Goju-Ryu is unique in being regarded as one of the major traditions in both Okinawa and mainland Japan. However, in Okinawa, the mainland Goju-Ryu led by Gogen Yamaguchi came to be regarded as a sport-oriented form that had diverged from traditional Okinawan Goju-Ryu. We will return to this development later. The Battle of Okinawa, which began in 1945, was the only large-scale ground battle fought on Japanese soil during World War II. The United States invaded Okinawa to secure airfields and naval bases that would serve as staging grounds for a planned invasion of the Japanese mainland. Meanwhile, the Japanese military adopted a strategy of prolonged resistance, aiming to delay the Allied advance and inflict the greatest possible casualties before the anticipated final battle on the mainland. As a result, more than 200,000 people, including civilians, lost their lives. Of these, approximately 120,000 were Okinawan residents, representing roughly 1/4 of the prefecture's population at the time. The fighting also devastated Okinawa's cultural heritage and natural environment. Historic landmarks, including Shuri Castle, were destroyed, and the island's society suffered immeasurable losses. Shorin-Ryu founder Shoshin Nagamine, who would later become one of the leading figures of post-war Okinawan karate, was serving as a police officer during the Battle of Okinawa. He helped evacuate civilians before ultimately surrendering to the U.S. forces. Nagamine, who was not yet 40 years old at the time, later recalled that his hair had turned completely white and that he had become so physically weakened he looked like an old man. The renowned karate master Chotoku Kyan died of malnutrition at the Ishikawa internment camp at the age of 74. Jinan Shinzato, a senior disciple of Goju-Ryu founder Chojun Miyagi, was also killed during the battle. Miyagi himself lost both his eldest and third sons in the war. His third son, Atsushi, whose name had been given by Jigoro Kano, the founder of Kodokan Judo, served in one of the first Japanese military units composed of 14 to 16-year-old student soldiers and was killed in action. Anbun Tokuda, a practitioner of the Shurite tradition, also lost his life. Even among Okinawa's most distinguished karate masters, the number of casualties was immense, illustrating just how devastating and brutal the Battle of Okinawa truly was. During the battle, the Imperial Japanese military was also involved in controversial actions, including treating civilians as suspected spies, encouraging or coercing mass civilian suicides in some areas, and the killing of civilians. These issues have remained the subject of ongoing debate between Okinawan society and the Japanese government over historical responsibility and the interpretation of wartime events. On June 6, 1945, in the midst of the fierce ground battle, Lieutenant General Minoru Ota, commander of the Imperial Japanese Navy's Okinawa Naval Base Force, sent a famous telegram to the Vice Minister of the Navy. In it, he described the extraordinary sacrifices and unwavering support provided by the people of Okinawa under unimaginable conditions and urged that they be treated with exceptional care after the war. Approximately 1 week after sending this message on June 13th, Ota took his own life. From 1945 until Okinawa's reversion to Japan in 1972, Okinawa was separated from mainland Japan and placed under U.S. administration. During this period, the U.S. dollar became the official currency, traffic changed to the right-hand side of the road, and Okinawans lived under a system distinct from that of mainland Japan. In the early years of the American occupation, many residents who had lost their homes during the fighting were forced to live in internment camps established throughout the islands. In July 1947, Shoshin Nagamine opened a small karate dojo in Makishi, Naha. The following year, in 1948, Choshin Chibana founded the Okinawa Shorin-Ryu Karate-Do Association and became its first president. As mentioned earlier, Shorin-Ryu is one of Okinawa's 3 major traditional karate styles. When the Korean War broke out in 1950, wartime procurement fueled a rapid economic recovery in mainland Japan, which had been devastated during World War II. In Okinawa, however, the construction of U.S. military bases accelerated. While many residents were still living in internment camps, their land was enclosed for military use. Later, further land seizures were carried out through what became known as bayonets and bulldozers, referring to the forced expropriation of private property under military authority. Some of the confiscated land contained ancestral family graves. As a result, many residents lost not only their property but also free access to their family burial sites. Even today, in certain areas within U.S. military installations, permission from the U.S. military is required to visit ancestral graves, a situation that many affected families continue to regard as deeply humiliating. Serious accidents involving U.S. military aircraft, including crashes and falling aircraft parts from fighter jets, transport planes, and helicopters, have also occurred repeatedly from the post-war period to the present day. The image shows the 1959 crash in which a jet fighter from Kadena Air Base crashed into Miyamori Elementary School. The accident killed 17 people, including schoolchildren, and injured 210 others, ranging from minor to severe injuries. As discussed later, Marine Corps Air Station Futenma is located in the middle of a densely populated urban area surrounded by schools and residential neighborhoods, leading it to be widely described as the world's most dangerous airbase. Today, approximately 15–18% of Okinawa's main island remains occupied by U.S. military bases. Moreover, around 70% of the U.S. military facilities used exclusively by American forces in Japan are concentrated in Okinawa Prefecture, despite the prefecture accounting for only about 0.6% of Japan's total land area. The unequal concentration of military bases in Okinawa continues to be one of the region's most significant political and social issues. As mentioned earlier, the founder of Matsubayashi-Ryu, Shoshin Nagamine, who was serving as a police officer at the time, organized and hosted a 5-on-5 karate tournament in the autumn of 1951, involving police officers from 13 districts across Okinawa. Nagamine's own headquarters team consisted mainly of beginners wearing white belts, but under his dedicated instruction, they improved dramatically in a short period of time. In the final, they defeated the powerful Naha police station team led by Eiichi Miyazato, who would later become a leading figure in Goju-Ryu and won the championship. The detailed rules of the tournament, however, remain unknown today. The following year, in 1952, Nagamine resigned from the police force after many years of service in order to devote himself fully to promoting karate and training the next generation. He then began operating his dojo on a full-time basis. At the time, Okinawa was under American administration, with the government of the Ryukyu Islands, established in 1952, responsible for local self-government. Although the government included executive, legislative, and judicial branches, ultimate governing authority remained in the hands of the United States, whose decisions could override or reject those of the local government. Over time, however, the system of self-government was gradually expanded, with residents electing members of the legislature and, during certain periods, the chief executive. In 1953, local assembly elections were held across many municipalities. In Naha, a special city council election took place in March, and Nagamine successfully won his first term as a city councillor. He was re-elected in the regular 4-year city council election held in 1954, retaining the support of the citizens. On January 24th of that same year, the official opening ceremony for Nagamine's karate dojo was held on a grand scale. The 1954 Naha City Council election also saw the election of several prominent karate masters. In the 1954 Naha City Council election, Uchoku Higa, a leading figure in the Okinawan karate community who had trained under Jinyan Shinzato and Choshin Chibana, and Genkai Nakaima, a prominent senior disciple of Chojun Miyagi in Goju-Ryu, were also elected. They served alongside Nagamine on the Naha City Council. Genkai Nakaima is also known as the father of Hirokazu Nakaima, who would later serve as governor of Okinawa Prefecture. The presence of 3 renowned karate masters, including Nagamine, on the city council, illustrates the significant influence that karate practitioners held not only in Okinawan martial arts, but also in local society and politics during the post-war period. In August 1955, the Okinawa exhibition was held at Takashimaya Department Store in Nihonbashi, Tokyo. Shoshin Nagamine and other Matsubayashi-Ryu karate practitioners traveled from Okinawa to give martial arts demonstrations. Nagamine's karate journey had begun when he received instruction from Gichin Funakoshi during his elementary school years. Funakoshi also attended the exhibition, and it is said that he and Nagamine were reunited there after many years. The Okinawa exhibition became a catalyst for growing support for the creation of a unified organization that would bring together Okinawa's karate community across the boundaries of individual styles. The initiative took shape primarily around Nagamine's school, and a series of planning meetings was held at the Nagamine dojo. On May 19, 1956, the Okinawa Karate Federation was officially established at the Teachers' Hall. Choshin Chibana, founder of Kobayashi-Ryu, became the federation's first president, while Nagamine was appointed vice president, forming a leadership structure that supported Chibana. Chojun Miyagi, founder of Goju-Ryu and one of the leading figures of post-war Okinawan karate, had passed away at the age of 65 in October 1953. After his death, Chibana emerged as one of Okinawa's foremost karate leaders and played a central role in uniting the various schools. With the establishment of this federation, post-war Okinawa gained its first organization to unite multiple karate styles, laying the foundation for a new stage in the development of Okinawan karate. That same month, in May 1956, Monthly Karate-Do was launched in mainland Japan by Hiroshi Kinjo, an Okinawan-born publisher. The inaugural issue opened with an article by Yasuhiro Konishi, one of mainland Japan's leading karate masters, calling for unity throughout the karate world. It also introduced dojos representing Shotokan, Wado-Ryu, mainland Goju-Ryu, and other styles. A young Mazoyama, who would later found Kyokushin Kaikan, also expressed his hopes for greater unity and development within karate. These contributions reflected a growing movement toward unification throughout the Japanese karate community. 3 years after Okinawa's federation was founded in 1959, the All Japan Karate-Do Federation was established in mainland Japan, with Shudokan, the headquarters of Okinawan-born senior master Kanken Toyama, as its base. Toyama had long advocated the principle that there are no styles in karate. The federation was headed by Tsai Chang-keng of Taiwan as president, with Yasuhiro Konishi, Shindo Jinen-Ryu, and Hiroshi Kinjo, Kanbukan, serving as vice presidents. Its advisors included Hironori Otsuka, Wado-Ryu, Tatsuo Yamada, Nippon Kenpo Karate-Do, and Shinken Gima, Shotokan. Many of the era's most prominent karate leaders participated in the organization. The federation organized national karate championships using a protective equipment competition format, greatly accelerating the movement toward unity within mainland Japanese karate. In April 1961, Nagamine became the third president of the Okinawa Karate Federation. Nagamine had been defeated in the August 1957 election and subsequently faced serious financial difficulties. However, his circumstances improved after reaching an agreement with a travel agency, which began bringing organized tour groups from mainland Japan to the Nagamine dojo. As part of their sightseeing itinerary, visitors watched demonstrations of authentic Okinawan karate, including Kihon, fundamental techniques, Tamashiwari, breaking demonstrations, and kumite, sparring, performed by senior practitioners. According to those who trained under him, some students earned more from the honoraria they received for these demonstrations than from their regular jobs. The steady flow of tour groups from mainland Japan became a major source of financial support for the dojo, enabling Nagamine to overcome the prolonged economic hardships he had faced. Nagamine's tenure as president of the Okinawa Karate Federation coincided with the global escalation of the Vietnam War. From 1965 onward in particular, Okinawa functioned as one of the U.S. military's largest forward bases. Large numbers of American troops underwent combat-oriented training there before deployment to Vietnam, while countless aircraft and naval vessels passed through Okinawa. Because Okinawa's climate and natural environment closely resembled those of Vietnam, it was regarded as an ideal location for realistic military training. Aircraft took off and landed around the clock, and the resulting noise had a profound impact on the daily lives of residents living near the bases. Contemporary records describe school lessons being interrupted and even ordinary conversation becoming difficult because of the constant aircraft noise. It has also been revealed through declassified U.S. military documents that large quantities of Agent Orange, the herbicide used during the Vietnam War, were stored at U.S. military bases in Okinawa. Witnesses have also testified that the chemical was sprayed and buried at several installations, including Kadena Air Base and Marine Corps Air Station Futenma. The issue of contamination at former U.S. military sites in Okinawa continues to be the subject of public debate today. At the time, Okinawa was experiencing frequent crimes and accidents involving U.S. military personnel, and the social climate was unstable. One example is 1964, just before the Vietnam War escalated. According to the Okinawa Prefectural Police, there were 973 criminal offenses under the Penal Code committed by U.S. military personnel and civilian employees that year. This was dramatically higher than the roughly 100 cases recorded annually today. Not all of those responsible were prosecuted under the Japanese legal system. Both then and now, the legal status of U.S. forces in Japan, including criminal jurisdiction, has been governed by the Japan-U.S. Status of Forces Agreement, SOFA. Under the agreement, even in cases involving off-duty offenses, U.S. authorities have generally retained custody of suspects before indictment. As a result, Japanese authorities have not always been able to immediately secure custody, a situation that has long been criticized for hindering criminal investigations and victim support. Following the 1995 Okinawa schoolgirl rape incident, operational procedures were revised so that in serious crimes such as murder and rape, U.S. authorities could hand suspects over to Japan before indictment based on sympathetic consideration. However, this was an operational improvement rather than an amendment to the SOFA itself. Returning to the 1960s, Okinawa served as the principal forward base for U.S. operations in Vietnam. Many young American servicemen lived under the constant pressure of knowing that deployment orders could arrive at any moment. It is reasonable to assume that such an environment may have contributed to criminal acts or misconduct by some individuals. Against this backdrop, U.S. servicemen reportedly visited Okinawan Karate Dojo with surprising frequency to test their skills. Given the resentment and frustration felt by many Okinawans over the succession of incidents involving U.S. military personnel, it is not difficult to imagine that many karate students felt compelled to stand up to visitors whose behavior resembled that of dojo yaburi, challengers who entered a dojo seeking to defeat its practitioners. Some of Shoshin Nagamine's students were also said to roam the entertainment districts of Naha, looking for formidable opponents to challenge. Their behavior resembled the old practice of kakedamashi, in which martial artists tested their techniques in real combat, illustrating the tense atmosphere that permeated Okinawa during that era. At the same time, however, this period also marked a major turning point in the global spread of Okinawan karate. During the Vietnam War, Okinawa functioned as the U.S. military's principal forward operating base in the Pacific. Many American servicemen studied karate as part of recreational, welfare, or educational programs offered on military bases. Masters from various Okinawan karate styles taught both on base and in local dojo. After returning home, many of these servicemen opened their own schools or promoted karate in their communities, helping Okinawan karate spread rapidly throughout the United States and eventually across the world. When discussing the Okinawan karate world in the post-war era, Uechi-Ryu cannot be overlooked. As mentioned earlier, Uechi-Ryu is regarded as one of Okinawa's three major karate styles. After World War II, it developed as a school that placed particular emphasis on rigorous physical conditioning and training with practical combat applications in mind. Strongly influenced by Chinese martial arts, Uechi-Ryu stands out as especially distinctive even within Okinawan karate, which itself has often been viewed by practitioners on mainland Japan as fundamentally different from their own traditions. One of its defining characteristics is the intensive conditioning of the fingertips and toes to a degree rarely seen in other styles, transforming the entire body into a weapon. During the era of the second headmaster, Kane Uechi, increasing numbers of U.S. military personnel stationed in post-war Okinawa began studying karate, and many foreign students reportedly trained at Uechi-Ryu dojo. At the time, these foreign students also helped support the operation of the dojo financially and became a catalyst for interaction between Okinawan karate practitioners and members of the U.S. military. Within the unique social environment of post-war Okinawa, practitioners also recalled repeatedly training with American servicemen who were often much larger than themselves and testing their skills through real-life confrontations with military personnel in town. Among some karate practitioners, there existed a belief that true skill should be refined not only through dojo training, but also through actual interpersonal encounters. This attitude parallels stories of kakedamashi, challenge matches, preserved in other lineages such as Matsubayashi-Ryu. Of course, this was not representative of the entire Okinawan karate community. Nevertheless, during the post-war years, there undeniably existed a distinctly martial mindset that sought to verify the practical effectiveness of one's techniques. Although Uechi-Ryu was recognized as a combat-oriented style, it never neglected kata. The practice of kata, particularly sanchin, has remained the foundation of the style to the present day. At the same time, Uechi-Ryu has always emphasized how the techniques cultivated through kata should be applied in actual exchanges with an opponent. This is one of the defining characteristics of the style. Okinawan karate originally developed around a training system centered on kata. Within that tradition, however, Choki Motobu was exceptional among karate practitioners of his era, pursuing karate as a true martial art while gaining first-hand experience through actual kake-damshi. Karate was eventually introduced to mainland Japan by Gichin Funakoshi through demonstrations, including those held at the Kodokan. However, because Funakoshi's karate emphasized kata, it was reportedly not widely embraced by mainland judo practitioners whose training centered on free sparring, randori. Aside from Kodokan founder Jigoro Kano, relatively few showed strong interest. Against this backdrop, mainland martial artists such as Hironori Otsuka and Yasuhiro Konishi, both well-versed in jujutsu, are said to have developed yakusoku kumite, pre-arranged sparring, based on traditional jujutsu partner drills. Although some senior Okinawan karate masters later opposed the spread of kumite and competition, non-contact free sparring and protective equipment sparring gradually evolved. From this progression eventually emerged Kyokushin karate, in which strikes were delivered with full contact without the use of protective armor or gloves. This occurred during an era when karate was believed to possess enough destructive power to shatter stones and bricks with bare fists, and many feared that full contact striking with bare hands could even result in fatalities. As such, Kyokushin was considered revolutionary for its time. While it attracted tremendous public attention, it was also frequently criticized within the karate community as being rough, barbaric, or merely street-fighting karate. Even so, some Uechi-Ryu practitioners reportedly believed that Kyokushin still fell short in terms of real combat effectiveness. One Uechi-Ryu student is said to have argued that Kyokushin rules, which prohibit hand strikes to the face, made it unsuitable for actual self-defense. In Uechi-Ryu kumite, although practitioners stop their techniques short of contact and do not actually strike the face, attacks to the face are recognized as valid scoring techniques. Consequently, sparring has always been conducted with the assumption that both offense and defense against facial attacks must constantly be taken into account. By contrast, in the early days of Kyokushin, tactics specifically designed to win under its competition rules had not yet been fully established. Many matches still featured distancing that appeared to reflect caution against facial strikes. As the sport matured, however, its competitive style evolved into one centered on close-range exchanges of repeated strikes to the body and low kicks, with powerful techniques such as high kicks being launched whenever distance briefly opened between opponents. Looking back at this evolution, it is impossible to determine the intentions of Okinawa's senior masters with certainty. Nevertheless, one possible explanation for their reluctance to promote kumite and competition is that they had already foreseen the unintended consequences of sportification. Namely, that competition would encourage the development of techniques optimized for a specific rule set, gradually transforming and diminishing karate's original martial character. In other words, they may have recognized the inherent limitations imposed by rules long before they became widely apparent. In 1967, Ryoichi Sasakawa, one of the most influential figures in Japan's post-war conservative movement, became president of the Japan Karate Federation (JKF). Under his leadership, the organization significantly strengthened its institutional and political foundation through his extensive influence in business and government circles. In 1969, it was officially recognized as an incorporated foundation. In January 1969, Shoshin Nagamine, the founder of Matsubayashi-Ryu, departed on his first overseas teaching tour. At the airport, he was reportedly seen off by many of Okinawa's leading karate masters of the time, including Uchoku Higa and Kane Uechi. Nagamine played a central role in rebuilding Okinawan karate organizations after World War II, and was instrumental in promoting Okinawan karate both within Japan and internationally. On May 15, 1972, Okinawa was returned to Japanese administration. The reversion marked a major institutional transformation for Okinawan society. The US dollar, which had been used under American administration, was replaced by the Japanese yen. And in 1978, road traffic was switched to left-hand driving, bringing Okinawa into line with the rest of Japan. These changes had a profound impact on everyday life. The Japanese Constitution, along with Japan's systems of social welfare and public education, was also introduced, legally reintegrating Okinawa into Japanese society. However, most U.S. military facilities concentrated in Okinawa remained in use after the reversion under the framework of the Japan-U.S. Security Treaty. Even today, the majority of exclusive U.S. military facilities in Japan are located in Okinawa Prefecture, and the reduction of the base burden and the future of regional development remain major issues. Many people, particularly those who experienced the Battle of Okinawa firsthand, fear that the presence of U.S. military bases would make Okinawa a primary target if another war were to break out. Having lived through the devastation of war themselves, many do not want their children and grandchildren to endure the same suffering. As a result, a considerable number continue to participate in anti-base movements while advocating for peace and a reduction in the burden imposed by the military bases. The issue of the U.S. military bases has also highlighted differences in perception between Okinawa and mainland Japan. Economically, Okinawa has long recorded one of the lowest university enrollment rates in Japan, while unemployment has historically remained among the highest in the country. Some argue that Okinawa's economy depends heavily on income related to the U.S. military bases, while others contend that the continued presence of the bases has constrained land use and industrial development over the long term. In particular, regarding Marine Corps Air Station Futenma, some public commentators and social media influencers have repeatedly claimed that people moved into the surrounding area after the base was established in order to benefit from base money, and then later opposed the base. This interpretation has become widespread in mainland Japan. Television programs have also aired segments portraying anti-base protesters in a mocking manner, and some influencers have similarly ridiculed local activists. However, the land now occupied by military bases contained villages, roads, schools, and businesses long before the war. Following the Battle of Okinawa, many residents lost their land through U.S. military land seizures, and urban areas later developed around the bases. Large U.S. military facilities, including Kadena Air Base, are concentrated in central Okinawa and have significantly influenced regional land use and urban development. Some researchers also argue that the slower economic development of northern Okinawa is related to the concentration of military bases, which effectively divide the island. From this perspective, some specialists contend that Okinawa's economy has been hindered rather than supported by the military bases. At the same time, repeated protests have also led to tragic incidents. In one case, a person involved in security operations died after being caught in an accident during a protest. In 2026, despite official warnings about dangerous sea conditions, a maritime protest against the construction of the Henoko base was carried out offshore. During the protest, a vessel carrying high school students from mainland Japan on a school excursion capsized. The accident claimed the lives of a 17-year-old female student and the 71-year-old captain, while 14 other students were injured. Meanwhile, tensions surrounding regional security have continued as vessels of the China Coast Guard have repeatedly entered or approached Japan's territorial waters around the Senkaku Islands in Okinawa Prefecture. Consequently, while many people in Okinawa call for reducing the burden of U.S. military bases, discussions continue in mainland Japan over how regional security should realistically be maintained. In April 1979, Meitoku Yagi of Goju-Ryu became the 7th president of the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation. This organization originated from the Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, established in 1956 under the leadership of Shoshin and was reorganized in 1967 as the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation. Over the years, the presidency was held by some of Okinawa's most prominent karate masters, including Shoshin Nagamine, Yuchoku Higa, Kane Uechi, and Meitoku Yagi. Photograph taken in 1977. From left to right, Yuchoku Higa, Shorin-Ryu, Shoshin Nagamine, Matsubayashi-Ryu, Kane Uechi, Uechi-Ryu, and Meitoku Yagi, Goju-Ryu. In 1981, however, the Okinawan karate community reached a major turning point. The organization split into two groups. The Okinawa Prefecture Karate-Do Federation, established under the leadership of Shoshin Nagamine, and the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, led by Meitoku Yagi and others. From that point onward, Okinawan karate developed along two major organizational paths. Another important issue emerged in 1987, ahead of the Okinawa Kaiho National Sports Festival, the first national sports festival ever held in Okinawa. Participation in the karate competition required membership in the Japan Karate Federation, JKF, the national governing body. At the time, the JKF, headed by Ryoichi Sasakawa, included the 4 major mainland karate styles, along with many other leading schools, making it the largest karate organization in Japan. The federation established competition rules based primarily on non-contact, Sun-Dome karate, and played a leading role in promoting karate nationwide as a modern competitive sport. Traditional karate as preserved in Okinawa, however, had long emphasized kata training, body mechanics, character development, and its identity as a martial art rather than a sport. For this reason, many Okinawan karate practitioners had mixed feelings about accepting a sporting framework. For Okinawa, the birthplace of karate, it was difficult to accept an organizational system centered on a sport-oriented form of karate that had developed on the Japanese mainland. Furthermore, many felt strong resistance to having the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, whose history predated that of the mainland federation, become subordinate to the Japan Karate Federation. The mainland branch of Goju-Ryu, mentioned earlier, joined the Japan Karate Federation. This is regarded in Okinawa as one of the reasons why mainland Goju-Ryu is often viewed as being fundamentally different from traditional Okinawan Goju-Ryu. The series of developments came to be viewed as the process by which Okinawa's karate organizations were absorbed into the mainland sport karate system and was referred to by some as the Ryukyu Disposition of karate. According to the Okinawa Times dated August 14, 1981, Yagi, then president of the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, himself described the issue as the Ryukyu Disposition of karate. What began as a dispute eventually developed into a major organizational split that divided the Okinawan karate community. However, this division did not occur suddenly. It was the culmination of nearly 2 years of negotiations and growing disagreements. The origins of the conflict can be traced back to 1979. That year, shortly after becoming president of the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, Meitoku Yagi, together with Executive Director Hisashi Uehara, held the first round of discussions with representatives of the Japan Karate Federation, mainland. In July, Yagi traveled to Tokyo again with Shoshin Nagamine, one of Okinawa's leading karate figures, for further negotiations with the JKF, mainland. Despite these efforts, the two sides remained far apart in their views on organizational structure and the role of sport competition, and no agreement was reached. At the time, Shoshin Nagamine was 72 years old. Nearly a decade had passed since he had stepped down as president of the Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, and he had largely withdrawn from frontline organizational leadership. Nevertheless, his decision to personally participate in the negotiations demonstrates that he regarded this issue as one that would determine the future of Okinawan karate. In the years following World War II, Nagamine had devoted himself to uniting Okinawan karate across style boundaries and promoting its development. Looking back on his efforts, it appears that what he valued most was not simply membership in a national sporting organization, but the preservation of Okinawan karate's traditions, its unique identity, and an environment in which the various styles could coexist with mutual respect. At the same time, he also seems to have understood the aspirations of the younger generation, who wished to compete in the National Sports Festival, as well as the realities of a changing era. As a result, he found himself forced to make difficult decisions while balancing principle against practicality. Nagamine did not unconditionally endorse the mainland federation. Rather, it is said that he believed that by joining the JKF, mainland, he could promote a proper understanding and wider appreciation of authentic Okinawan karate from within the organization. Rather, it is said that he believed that by joining the JKF, mainland, he could promote a proper understanding and wider appreciation of authentic Okinawan karate from within the organization. He also reportedly attempted to persuade other senior Okinawan karate masters to support this approach. As tensions continued to escalate, reconciliation eventually became impossible. In August 1981, the Okinawa Prefecture Karate-Do Federation was established under Nagamine's leadership. Meanwhile, the All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation, led by Yagi, maintained its existing course, leaving the Okinawan karate community divided into two separate organizations. This split represented far more than a disagreement over organizational administration. It brought into the open two competing visions for the future of Okinawan karate. One centered on preserving its unique traditions and identity, and the other on developing karate as a competitive sport through integration with a nationwide organization. For Nagamine, it marked a profound turning point, as the unity of the Okinawan karate community that he had spent a lifetime building began to unravel. Ironically, Nagamine himself, who had long expressed caution toward excessive emphasis on competition and winning, ultimately concluded that participation in the National Sports Festival was an unavoidable demand of the times. While continuing to seek ways to preserve the distinctive character of Okinawan karate, he chose the pragmatic course of establishing a relationship with the JKF, mainland. Rather than representing an abandonment of his ideals, this decision can be understood as a painful and deeply considered choice made in an effort to secure the future of Okinawan karate in a changing era. Newly established in Okinawa, the key figures who supported Nagamine within the Okinawa Prefectural Karate-Do Federation were Katsuya Miyahira of the Okinawa Shorin-Ryu Karate-Do Association and Eiichi Miyazato of Goju-Ryu. When the organization was founded, Nagamine became its first president. Miyahira served as vice president, and Miyazato was appointed executive director, establishing a new leadership structure. Like Meitoku Yagi, Eiichi Miyazato was a student of Chojun Miyagi, the founder of Goju-Ryu. While Miyagi began teaching Yagi when Miyagi was 37 and Yagi was 13, Miyazato entered Miyagi's dojo when Miyagi was 48 and Miyazato was 13. Within the Goju-Ryu tradition, Yagi was therefore Miyazato's senior. However, the two men took different positions regarding membership in the Japan Karate Federation, mainland, and the leading instructors of Goju-Ryu ultimately joined different organizations. Many influential Uechi-Ryu instructors were also cautious about or opposed to the affiliation, and criticism of Nagamine reportedly intensified among some members of the Okinawan karate community. There are accounts that even when representatives of Nagamine's Okinawa Prefectural Karate-Do Federation and Yagi's All-Okinawa Karate-Do Federation attended the same events, the atmosphere remained so hostile that they neither spoke to one another nor even made eye contact. In Okinawa, opinions on Nagamine Shoshin's decision remained divided for many years. Looking back, however, the years that followed brought significant achievements. At the 1985 National Sports Festival, Tsugo Sakumoto became the first Okinawan to win the karate championship. 2 years later, at the 1987 Okinawa Kaiho National Sports Festival, Okinawa won the overall karate title, demonstrating to the nation the strength of karate from its birthplace. At the time, the karate community emphasized not only participation in the National Sports Festival, but also the need to develop the sport on a global scale and to cultivate athletes with the long-term goal of Olympic inclusion. Approximately 40 years after those aspirations were first articulated, karate made its debut as an official Olympic sport at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, with competitions held from August 5 to 7, 2021. Representing Japan in the men's kata event was Ryo Kiyuna, who trained in Ryuei-Ryu Ryuhokai. According to tradition, Ryuei-Ryu traces its lineage from its founder Ryuko, followed by the second-generation Kenri Nakima, the third-generation Kenchu, the fourth-generation Kenko, and the fifth-generation Kenji. For many years, the style was preserved through a system of transmission to a single successor. However, after Tsugo Sakumoto became a disciple of the fourth-generation master Kenko, its techniques gradually became more widely available. Kenri Nakima is said to have brought martial arts from Fuzhou, China, to Okinawa after studying there in the mid-1870s. Born in Kume village, around present-day Kume, Naha City, Nakima traveled to Fuzhou as a young man to pursue martial arts training and spent many years studying there. Kume village was known as the community where immigrants from China had settled. During the Ryukyu kingdom, it played a vital role in diplomacy with China, interpretation, and scholarship. Families bearing surnames such as Sai, Kai, Qin, Chen, Tei, Zheng, and Ryo, Liang, traditionally said to descend from the 36 families of Min, lived there, making it a gateway for Chinese culture. It is also said that some residents of Chinese ancestry adopted Okinawan-style family names. As mentioned earlier, Meitoku Yagi was also from Kume village. Because of this, Kume village became a center through which Chinese martial arts, Confucian learning, and many other forms of knowledge and culture entered Okinawa, helping create one of the foundations upon which Okinawan karate would later develop. Nakima is said to have studied martial arts in Fuzhou under a master known as Ryu. And after many years of training, he and Kanryo Higaonna were both awarded certificates regarded as equivalent to full transmission of the art. In addition to martial arts, he reportedly studied traditional Chinese medicine, traveled throughout China collecting weapons and martial arts manuscripts, and continued to deepen his knowledge. Kanryo Higaonna is known to have spent 15 years, from 1872 to 1887, in Fuzhou and along the Min River. Ryo Kiyuna, who was raised in the Ryuei-Ryu tradition of Okinawa, the birthplace of karate, went on to win the gold medal in the men's kata event at the Tokyo Olympics. His historic victory became a moment in which the perseverance and hardships endured by generations of Okinawan karate practitioners were finally rewarded. Moreover, August 7, 2021, the final day of the Olympic karate competition, marked exactly 40 years since the founding of the Okinawa Prefectural Karate-Do Federation. 40 years had passed since the federation took its first step toward advancing competitive karate. That, on this milestone day, an Okinawan athlete representing Japan won an Olympic gold medal gave the occasion special significance for many within the karate community. When karate spread to mainland Japan, it evolved under the influence of Japanese martial arts, placing greater emphasis on both practicality and competition. As a result, standardized rules for competition were established. However, the development of those rules was led primarily by organizations and figures in mainland Japan, not by the karate masters who had preserved Okinawan traditional karate in the post-war era. The split between Shoshin Nagamine and Meitoku Yagi was by no means driven by personal ambition or self-interest. Yagi sought to preserve the original culture of Okinawan karate as it had been born and nurtured in the Ryukyu Islands. Nagamine, on the other hand, believed that by joining the mainland karate organizations, which were rapidly expanding throughout Japan, he could promote greater understanding and appreciation of Okinawan karate from within. Although the two men chose different paths, both were ultimately guided by a deep commitment to the future of Okinawan karate. It is also worth noting that during the 1970s and 1980s, the Japan Karate Federation's kata competitions employed the shite kata, designated kata system. The designated kata was selected exclusively from the four major mainland styles: Shotokan, Goju-Ryu, mainland lineage, Shito-Ryu, and Wado-Ryu. Kata from major Okinawan styles such as Shorin-Ryu, Matsubayashi-Ryu, and Uechi-Ryu were not included in the designated kata list. Over time, however, the rules were revised. Today, kata from a much wider range of traditions are recognized in international competition, including the Ryuei-Ryu kata performed by Ryo Kiyuna when he won the gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. From this perspective, Nagamine's vision of promoting understanding of Okinawan karate from within the larger karate organizations can be seen as having borne fruit. Kiyuna's historic Olympic achievement brought Okinawan karate unprecedented international attention, representing one tangible realization of that vision. Of course, this progress was not achieved through Okinawan efforts alone. It is equally important to recognize that the Japan Karate Federation adopted increasingly fair and inclusive competition policies, opened its doors to Okinawan styles, and did not favor mainland competitors. These developments were also essential factors in making broader recognition of Okinawan karate possible. Furthermore, as karate became firmly established in mainland Japan, its growth owed much not only to the support of leading figures in the Japanese martial arts world, such as Jigoro Kano and Hakudo Nakayama, but also to the contributions of martial artists including Hironori Otsuka and Yasuhiro Konishi, whose experience, innovation, and dedication greatly advanced the art. Even today, various issues remain between Okinawa and mainland Japan. While it is often pointed out that various issues still remain between mainland Japan and Okinawa today, the martial arts communities of mainland Japan and Okinawa, once thought to be incapable of mutual understanding, have also built a long history of exchange and cooperation. In light of this shared history, it is hoped that continued dialogue and mutual understanding will gradually help overcome these challenges in the years to come.